Welcome to the second of a series of 3 presentations on the use of social media by tourism and hospitality businesses for sustained growth. This particular session is going to talk about performance measures in a Web 2.0 world and the use of social media monitoring tools. Okay, most of us will be familiar with these particular key performance indicators. Most of us that have got websites. Site visits, unique visits, geographical spread of visits, length of time that your customers or visitors are spending on your site or on pages, how they navigate through the site, the number and quality of site inquiries. You know, they're fairly prosaic. We're used to these types of measures, and most of us are beginning to use things like Google Analytics and other site statistics packages to measure them. However, in a Web 2.0 environment, other things are important. The quality of your network, your strength of relationship with your customers, your ability to leverage your customers, your advocates, to influence them, to get them to talk positively about your brand through messages. Web 2.0 winners, customers that are successful in this space, are able to build strong one-to-one customer relationships with their most valuable and most growable customers. They're able to identify, acquire, retain and grow quality customers. And for that, a new mindset is required, as Jim talked about in the first presentation, but also new performance measures. New performance measures, which we like to call the 4 I's: involvement, interaction, intimacy and influence. How many of your customers are involved in your social media activities? How many people are in your network? How many are viewing your YouTube videos, your Flickr images? How much time are they spending? How frequently are they coming back? Of those customers, how many are interacting through posting and commenting, through adding reviews and recommendations on sites like TripAdvisor? What are they saying about your brand? How intimate are they? What's the sentiment of your community? Is there affection to your brand, or is it aversion? Is it negative or positive sentiment? And who else are they telling about your brand, your product, your destination? Are they influencing others? Are they advocates for your organisation? And we can begin to measure the 4 I's through a series of software tools which are called social media monitoring tools. Social media monitoring tools evaluate what's being said, who's saying it, where they're saying it, what impact are those mentions having on the internet, on your brand, on your product. These tools aggregate mentions, they create a river of news across the web. They allow you to analyse that data in a very high level of detail. They deliver actionable insights. We've been looking at this space for the last 6 or 9 months, and we've identified around 100 companies that are all offering a variety of different solutions. But they're all trying to do this similar sorts of things. They offer search and relevance filters. Think of adding keyword terms into something like Google. You can do the same with social media monitoring tools. But more than that, you can add a level of information on top of each keyword. You can assign events to the buzz or the river of news that's coming back over a time period. They pull information from a variety of channels, from websites, mainstream news, blogs, micromedia like Twitter. They measure volume of mentions, importance, and also where the mention's been made in terms of demographics. Importantly, they analyse sentiment or tone. They allow you to understand intimacy. And they do this over a date range. Some of the tools are free, what we say relatively unsophisticated. So tools like Google Alerts, often good enough for many companies. There's other tools like Social Mention, which more than Google Alerts offer a level of sentiment, but again, they're free, easy to use. And then there's tools like Tracker, which allow you to to dig into some of those mentions by date and export the detail out. Others are expensive but highly sophisticated. Tools like Social Radar, where you can begin to understand the buzz that's been created around your product or your destination. Now, these tools are quite complex to try and explain, so what we'll try and do is to put it in simple terms by showing you a case example of some media monitoring we've carried out on the brand, if you like, of St Andrews. We've looked at it from a number of perspectives. So tourism in St Andrews, we've picked out a few keywords around visit St Andrews, visited, visiting, and then we've also looked at golf in St Andrews. The two are very closely tied by looking at Home of Golf in St Andrews and the Old Course in St Andrews. And what we get back is a river of news which we can look at over an annual basis. And we see a peak round about November. When we dig into that peak, we actually find that a lot of the buzz that's taken mentions above average is actually around the G8 Summit, which took place at the Old Course Hotel in St Andrews. But we can also dig in a particular month. So what we'll do is we'll take a closer look at March. And over the last 30 days, we see a number of peaks, a number of troughs, and we can look at more detail at those peaks. So as you can see, we've denoted the graph A, B, and C. Peak 1 are actually a range of blogs. Peaks B and C are actually mainstream news items, and we can look in more detail about what's causing that buzz. So in point 1, at point A, we can actually dig in more detail, and we can look at key search terms, and what we see are things like Open Championship 2010, amongst other search terms around Scotland and golf and so on. When we dig into that in a little bit more detail, we find out that there's a bit of buzz around some of the golfing celebrities that will be attending this year's Open, which is going to be at St Andrews. We also see further within that river of news that there's also some promotions taking place around from Visit Scotland, and one of those promotions is 250 free tee times throughout the year, culminating in a round of golf with Sam Torrance at the Old Course. When we look in more detail at B, we can also find that there's some news around things like the Old Course Hotel, but also COSLA and Spend. And in more detail, we find out that some of that news is actually related to a local council event which took place at the Old Course Hotel, and there was some various buzz around the cost and the expense of that. And we go into C, again, we can find that the tag cloud is giving us an indication of what is causing that particular peak. And it's about the owner of the Old Course Hotel, who happens to be a billionaire, who's talking about crumbling buildings and how difficult they are to keep up. We can begin to look at that river of news in a number of different ways. We can look at it in terms of the platforms or the channels. So there's a range of channels. There's blogs, mainstream news, Twitter feeds, forum replies, images and comments. We compare media types for St Andrews with other areas. So Edinburgh, as you can see, and if we compare the two, we find out that micromedia is perhaps a little bit more important for Edinburgh and less important for St Andrews. We can begin to look at the comments that have been generated by those posts. So we see a huge number of comments for mainstream news, but very little comments for blogs. So it begins to indicate how much user-generated content is being created, how much engagement there is for St Andrews.